Well, okay, guitar friends. Are you wondering, should I learn all 5 major scale positions first? No. Who told you that? Learn one and learn it well. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to let one scale shape prove its worth by showing us how it can do things that connect a lot of dots, connect a lot of these things that we've been working so hard to learn, such as bar chords, triads. We're going to allow the major scale to reveal more than it maybe has done before. Come with me. Let me know. Do you have your guitar? You better. I know you people over there. Are you sitting there with your axe? Let's get comfortable. Settle in. If you don't have a nice green tea or a coffee, grab something and let's just take the gentle repetition path to victory here. I'm going to explain this information as we go. If you glance at this and you know it, great. If you know some of it, great. If you know none of it, great. Don't let the information overwhelm you. We're going to very quickly be jumping into hearing it, seeing it, feeling it to prove to ourselves what it's all about. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then back to C. Okay, so this is the infamous C major scale. No sharps, no flats. And it's a great starting point for that reason. Look at each one of those parking spaces here. C being the root, being the 1. We've got it written as a 1. We've got it written as the Roman numeral. We've got it written as a capital M. All that information will start to become automatic. Some of it might already be. What does that mean? Let's get into one of these scale positions that we're going to get very familiar with today. This right here, I want you to start by running a little bit of inventory. Let's start with chords. And let's see how these chords interact with this scale shape underneath. So what I just played is a C major bar chord based off of the 6th string, right? Now, I'll be mentioning things as I go. You might have it down cold, or it might be like, what's he talking about? It's okay. Add to your list the things that you want to go back and review or that you want to stock up on. But for a lot of the people I'm working with, they've been getting into triads, right? So in this bar chord, the top 3 strings, that's a C major triad. Strings 2, 3, 4, that's a C major triad. And in fact, in this shape, go right down to the next group of strings, you've got a bunch of C major triads that are built into this bar chord shape. And it's interesting just to take a moment to see how they sit on top of that scale shape, what they light up, right? So those are all just going to be some form of a root, a major 3rd, that's that major 3rd, or a 5th. Great, let's just continue through this scale, and then we'll start connecting it using single notes and playing chords in between. We're going to be doing like, and sort of spelling out melodies that sound nice and kind of, you know, almost Mel Bay, sort of sing-songy. We're sort of dealing with the primary colors of harmony today, but it gets really gentle and soothing, and I think it'll sort of unravel some of these things that have maybe been tied up a little bit too tight. So if we go to the next chord up in that sequence, in fact, actually, let's skip over chord 2 and 3, and let's go up to chord 4, just like what we just did. So play that C major, and now this simple ba 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 ba, kind of like Lean on Me, right? So we walked up 1, 2, 3, 4, and we landed on F. C, D, E, F. And we know that major bar chord shape there, right? The top 3 strings of that shape, that's a triad, F major. Strings 2, 3, 4, that's a triad. And that's a power chord, so that's not a triad right there, but when you play it all together, you get an F major chord. I might have said C major, sorry. So that's F major, that's the 4 chord. Let's walk right back on down, just playing from the bass note, dun, 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 to a C. Do that again. So ba 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 F, ba 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 C. Part of what you want to let your brain welcome in is the idea that you will sometimes be using the letters. You'll sometimes be using the numbers. You might refer to it as the 2 chord, or you might just specifically say F major. Just allow these different combinations to be available. It's not just one system or the other, because we use them all for different situations, right? Okay, so let's walk up now. We've got C walking up to F. Let's go up to G. So let's stay as much as possible within this shape, because the scale pattern. So rather than doing that shape, for right now, let's just do this, because this is another vital major chord voicing. Look at how it lights up all those nice notes within that scale pattern. So that's the 5 chord. That's a G major. And instantly, just having the 1, the 4, and the 5 connected on this map gives us essentially the primary colors. And I refer to that a lot. My metaphors mix around, as you know. It's sort of like the red, blue, and yellow of harmony. So let's play around with that little sequence just a little bit. Like, and make no mistake, when you're doing these connecting pieces, you're writing melodies. They're bass lines, they're nice and low voiced melodic lines. This is part of what we would call voice leading. It's literally a voice leading us to the next chord. And so I'll play these little riffs and kind of do sort of like a little bit of Simon Says, just sort of try to match it, because I can't be too precise. I'm a musician. Sometimes I forget what I played, but if I go da 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 da, try to match that melody. So you go ba 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 ba. Yeah, you got to work on that grip if you're not familiar with it. This one, by the way, also has triad, top 3 strings. That's that triangle shape that we learned down on D back in the day. So there it is. Strings 2, 3, 4. Another beautiful triad right there, and strings 5, 4, and 3. That's another triad right there. So that one has triad, triad, triad. Remember, the magic combination for triad is that it has a 1, has a 3, has a 5. Okay, so we're going to start to now move a little bit more. We've got the 1 chord. Boom. Walk up to 4. Walk down and back up to 5. Now can we continue going up? Boom, 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 boom. Holy schmoly, what was that? We're going to play some very nice sounding, like, very well-behaved sounding melodies. But from this, you can make all the fancier stuff and break rules. But these are the rules, and then you can kind of break them. Meaning, we're going to play some stuff that sounds nice and majory. But just connecting these lines to these chords is going to be great. So let's do something like that again. What we're going to do is we're going to play the 1 chord. We're going to walk up, bum, 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 to the 4. We're going to go da, 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 to the 5. And then continue walking up, boom, 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 boom. And as we talked about earlier, that top 4-string version of a C is just a chunk of that bigger bar chord. Tasty, useful. Could we continue up from here? And notice that we've got this sort of gray circle around these roots. Those are just good anchors. A lot of times when I'm trying to just locate, actually every single time when I'm trying to locate myself in the middle of a scale, I try to find, well, where are my "you are here" dots? Like, remember in the shopping mall? Like, I'm over here by Wetzel's Pretzels. Well, I'm over here by Orange Julius. Well, I'm over here by Mrs. Fields. Mrs. Fields wins every time. But these dots tell you kind of where your starting point is. Whether or not you decide to start there, that's up to you, but they allow me to sort of anchor everything. So from this root right here, right in the middle of the scale, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4. Why not? Because I can count. I know where the 1 is. It's right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the rules of this scale are going to be numbered like anything else. It just repeats. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then right there, we could play a 4 chord just using the top 3 strings, just like we talked about earlier, right? So now we're actually using like these kind of ideas of like what's a triad. It's usually just a 3-note version of a chord, and it's, oftentimes you find them inside of bar chords, yada, yada, yada. But check it out. If we go all the way down to this low C, we're going to go from the 1, play the whole thing, boom, 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 to the 4, dun, 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 to the 5. Yeah, I wish Orange Julius was still around. It's still a thing in my heart. Boom, da, da, da. Now we're going to continue up. Boom, bum, 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 to the 4. Bum, 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 bum. See, I'm using triads. I'm arriving at the 5. Right there, that 5. And then I'm playing a chord around it. And there I am. I'll just answer that with a triad. I can play the full chord. Is that making sense? That we're just hopefully taking obvious information. We're just slowly working our way through it, which maybe is a different way to approach a scale than and just sort of drilling in the shape. A lot of the memorization, super useful. None of this is like, you'll never need it. It's like, you'll need it. But to then just slowly work through this, almost like you're just sort of doing some watercoloring, a little bit of the Bob Ross, just like answering with a nice little chord. So let's get into some of the minor chords, which are so useful, and they're just waiting to be mixed in as these interesting other colors. Before we get into those triads, let's do what we did just a moment ago with these full bar chords for the 1, 4, 5. And the color coding isn't exact. I just use the circles in the up here in the uppercase and lowercase m, but that doesn't correspond directly to the pink or the blue on the fretboard. It's just these are the colors that seem to work visually to at least make it somewhat decipherable, right? Okay, so we've got a C. The next chord is going to be in this sequence is going to be a D minor. And this is where, I'll kind of just I'll break out of this scale position, but you'll see how a lot of it still does overlap. We're really familiar probably with that D minor right there, based off the 10th fret. Okay, then the E minor, this one kind of lands right inside that scale pattern shape. We've got the F, let's play it. We've got the G, just covered that. Now the A, let's just sort of break down back here. Got that A right there, so you can kind of see that. And there's that A right there, based off the 4th string. And then we go up to B, and this is a case where I often skirt the issue of talking about the 7th chord. Let's talk about it real briefly. The way that we spell chords in a major scale is that we skip every other. So a C chord is made up of a C, E, and G. That's how you get it. And if you were to say, okay, well, how do I build a D minor? We got a D, F, A. Those are the 3 notes that make up a triad for a D minor, so on and so forth. E, G, and B for E minor and all that. So for the B, it's a diminished chord, which is the result of B. We skip over the C, we land on D, and we got the F. And so it's a diminished chord, which has a cool sound. It brings a lot of tension. It sounds a little bit antiquated most of the time in this context, functioning as a 7, which is not to say that a diminished chord sounds antiquated. There's all kinds of uses for a diminished chord in the same way that a major and a minor chord could appear all over the place. But when a diminished chord is appearing right here in this role as the 7th chord, that's what when we say functional harmony, it's like you're using a certain flavor in a certain sequence of the scale. This is what it would sound like. We've got the C, we've got the D minor, we got the E minor, we've got the 4 chord, that's the F, we've got the 5 chord, that's the G, we got the 6, which is the A minor, and now we've got this. It's kind of beautiful, right? In fact, I'm playing B, D, F, and A, and then we would finish there. So let's have that here for a moment and just sort of get that in our back pocket. So if and when we need a proper 7th chord diminished, check out that one. Check out where it lights up those notes within the scale. What ends up happening, and if you know this is great. If you don't, this is something that you can sort of file away, is that these 4 notes are actually kind of an upper extended structure of a G7, of the 5 chord. The 5 chord and the 7 chord have so many notes in common that they often carry the same function. Like a 5 chord really wants to resolve to the 1 in the same way that this diminished chord that's all. I'm not trying to dive too deep into theory as much as just let you know that these flavors within the scale and those chords that we build off of them, they have a certain function, functional harmony. And often the function is to build some tension and then release it. That's basically what chords do. They all have certain ways that they set up that expectation and then the resolution, right? But throughout this sort of masterclass here, there'll be times where I'll show you the option that you might want to play. Instead of building a diminished chord off of that 7th degree, you might be able to build a 5 chord. And what we're having right there is that B in the bass. So that's a G with a B in the lowest part of the chord. Okay, so that'll make sense as we kind of work through it. It's just a nice way to train your ear to that tension and release. That's really the takeaway more than anything. It's like, oh, the 7th chord really has a lot of magnetism to go back to the 1. Okay, it's less about trying to memorize all the diminished chords and be ready for anything. It's like, just know that color. Okay, so let's build some progressions now using this, and we'll move in various ways, and just follow my lead, and we'll play a little bit. This is where we actually get into the sort of meat of how we're going to be doing this and working through different scales and shapes. So 1, bum, 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 up to the 4. Just walk right up using the scale. Don't skip the scale connection. So bum, 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 play that and talk yourself through it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go from here. Dun, 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 down to the 2. Okay, so 1 up to the 4. Dun, 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 to the 2. Go down, 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 up to the 5. I'll repeat that. So we got 1, walk up to 4, walk down to 2, 2 up to 5. Let's keep going this sort of pattern. 5 down to 3. Bum, 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 to the 6. Dun, 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 dun. Let's work through that again from the bottom. I'm obviously making this up as I go, so sometimes I'll be like missing a note here and there or everywhere. So we're just working our way up and working back down. So 1 walks up to 4. And then from here we're just going to go down to the 2. Dun, dun, 2. Walk up to 5. Then down to the 3. Dun, dun, dun. Walk up to 6. And then we got to grab that right there. That's that A minor. 6 down to 4. It's the F. 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is where you could play that diminished. Let's do that there. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? How is that going? Is that semi sort of making sense on a scale of 1 to 4? Sipping my green tea. We're just painting happy little trees out there, gang. That's all we're trying to do. Okay, so one thing I want to add to this scale position here, and make no mistake, the beauty of guitar is that we can move a shape so easily. We can scoot this exact same shape down a fret and suddenly be in B, and all of the relationships stay the same. So this is why I'm a big fan of saying, get to know one shape really well, then maybe add a second shape. Because once you understand like how the scale tones connect to the chords, then you're okay. You can handle if somebody says B flat, because you just have to find where your starting point is, and then little by little you'll be able to combine your knowledge of where the notes are on the fretboard with your knowledge of where that scale shape lines up with it. Okay, so I'm going to put on top of this scale pattern this overlay. And this right here is what I often refer to as the L shape. If you imagine an L that's like whoop, right there, so to turn on its side, that represents to me the usual suspects of any given key for a lot of popular music. I know it's a generalization, all that kind of stuff. So it will get you pretty far down the road, and I'm only teaching what I use. And so what I use whenever I'm in a jam session is I'm trying to learn, let's say, a song, Ray knows. Anytime someone's playing a song that you haven't learned, but you're maybe familiar, you've heard the song on the radio or on your Spotify or whatever, and they're walking you through the changes, you've got to be ready to listen, I think, closely to where the bass line is first, because the bass line will often be lining up with the names of the chords, and you can sort of build it as you go. And so, remind ourselves here that we've got this C major scale shape right here. And then this blue overlay gives us, what does it give us? It gives us the root note, the bass note of a root position C major chord. So that's the 1 chord. That right there, that's an F. That gives us the 4 chord. Now if we scoot up with that exact same shape, bum, 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 we've got that G right there. And we keep going up, bum, 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 and then the dots are gonna go woo, flying off the map. So this is the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, and the 6 chord, which is a really handy way to have the bass notes mapped on the lowest, the 6th and the 5th string, because this is when you're using your bar chords, especially when you might use that for the entire song, but it also just gives you the sort of the blocking, the sort of main sections of how to sound out the harmony. And from that, it's very easy to find some of the in-between chords like the 2 and the 3, because you can remember that, well, the 2 is just going to be right here. Just going to be 2 frets higher than the root. It's going to be a whole step higher. If you need the 3, it's right there, just right there, right underneath the 4 chord. So you get into those kind of movements where you're able to, when people want to learn ear training, a lot of what the ear training is narrowing down the options so that you're not guessing from all the 12 notes. You're actually guessing usually from about 3 or 4 possibilities based on what you're hearing. So if I were to be diabolical and turn off the fretboard dots and all that and turn this way, let's say we're jamming in C, so you have that information. I want you to try to use what I showed you, that L shape, the 1, 4, 5, and 6, and it's just going to be some combination of 1, 4, 5, 6, right? We'll start there. Try to map out this chord progression, okay? And it may start on the 1 or it may not. Here we go. So imagine we're jamming and you got to figure it out. We'll play for a bit. I'll stop playing and I'll say, what was the chord progression? So it was 1 to the 5, boom, 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 down to the 4, a bunch of times, boom, boom, boom. So what you want to be listening for and zeroing in on is, singing along with that bass line as much as you can. And this has nothing to do with like, I don't sing, I do sing. I don't have a good voice. It has nothing to do with it. It's more that you're trying to grab onto something. And usually when you play along with something, it can get a little more confusing and you can be sort of like clashing with the recording. But if you have the power, especially if you're like, have the power of the space bar or to stop the playback, stop and then hum it so that you can try to match what you just heard in your inner ear and then get your hands on your instrument. So if this was like a audio that you could stop, and if you're watching this in the future, you can. What you want to do is listen for the moment that you hear the thing repeat, the chord progression or the pattern repeat, and then stop it so that you don't get confused by the rolling repetitions and trying to fight with the track. So if I go like this, stop it, and then go bum 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 bum. So what would that progression be? Slightly different than the last one. That would be a 1 to a 6 to a 4. Okay, and whatever gets you there. If you're able to do this right out of the gates, that's fine. A lot of what I will share is like 5 or 6 ways to approach something to help you have almost like have your fallback plan, like plan A, plan B, plan C, so that you have a way to grab on to a bit of information as it goes by quickly. A lot of times people will say, oh, it's all going too fast. It's like, it's not necessarily going too fast. It's just feeling like it's flying by faster than you're able to break down the information. So a lot of these little tricks will make it feel like you have all the time in the world to think about things, because you'll be listening to smaller parts of the progression. If you listen really closely to the boom, boom, that lower part, there might be other things going on. Let's say if it was like, if you got lost and sort of hypnotized by the biddy biddy boom, you'd be getting pulled into something that sounds like it's much more complicated and what's going on here, and you might fall for the shiny object syndrome of like, oh wait, what's that? Is that like a 6? Is that no. You got to start at the foundation and hear the fundamental harmony, like the. So you should actually in your ear just be hearing boom, 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 boom. That's the kind of thing that will allow you to immediately go, oh, cool, it's a 1-5-4. Boom, 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 boom. And then that's when the device of this L shape is yours to keep using or not. Meaning you could decide, like I said earlier, you could build a whole, guitar part based off of using that L shape. See how I'm moving with that exact sequence of those bass notes. Or I could say, okay, I got it. That helped me sort of unpack what's going on in this chord progression. Now I'm going to use that to build a part that I like, which is like the 1, here's the 4, the 5, or sorry, the 1, then I want to go to the 5, 4, right? Because a lot of things that trip people up when it comes to triads is that they'll work really hard on memorizing these shapes, and then they'll lack the repetitions of switching smoothly and understanding that this is the 1, that's the 5, right? How many of you have experienced that thing where you work on these shapes independently, being like, okay, here's a C, 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 but staying in one position is where it's at, because then you get that. And then something that sounds like it's flowing and it's like desirable because we're like, oh, I just want to be able to do that. All that's going on there is that we've got a 1, a 5, and a 4, and it all started from boom, 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 and then we built the bar chords, boom, 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 boom. Then we stayed in one position, boom, 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 boom. Then we played the higher parts of it, just coming from the triads, boom, boom, boom. And you see how all of those little decisions become much more easy and gradual when you have that meat and potatoes foundation. If you just try to jump in saying, oh, I think there's triads going on here, I'm going to try to just hit the bullseye right away, you might be like, oh shoot, no, that wasn't it. And then the track's still playing. You're like, ah. That's when people say, it's all going by too fast. It's because we're trying to jump on the merry-go-round at full speed, again, with my many metaphors. Trying to find your way gradually up to like what's going on is going to be nice. So let's do a little bit more of all of this stuff, and I'll take breaks from the talking. We'll do more of the rocking. Let's start from the top note, from that C, and let's just sort of like treat each of these notes in the scale as like the root of the chord. So C, and then play a C chord. So we walk down from 1, 7, 6, 5. So that's a G, right? That's what we were just doing, but maybe approaching it from above threw us off. 1, da, 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 da. Let's keep going down. Da, 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 da. What note is that? I'll turn this over to y'all. And if you're watching in the future, I'm talking to these people right here. So we've got a 1 da, 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 to a 5. And you hear me kind of like sort of like doing a tired George Benson singing along. That's a habit from just wanting to connect that the voice leading 5, 4, 3. Anyone? Everyone? So that's going to be a 2. So we've got the 1, walk down to 5, 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, and that's where you start to combine your knowledge of, okay, it's a 2 chord. Maybe I'll go down here. Maybe I'll do play it right there. Like then you have your ability to find a D minor wherever you decide to. Okay, so let's play that progression now. Actually, let's put it to a beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going. Put a little bass part on this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if I heard a bass line like this that was putting in all these other notes, how would I approach it? And you tell me in the comments. If you only started, if you got to the scene of the crime and you started with just drums and this kind of bass part, how confident do you feel that you'd be able to decipher the chords? And while you think about how to answer that, I'll tell you that like a lot of times a really cool bass part, and let's imagine this is a really cool bass part, I think it sounds good, is just simply built off of what we were just doing. We're just connecting the pieces. We've got that boom, 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 doing a little bit of chromatic stuff, but we're just basing it, get it, around that major scale. So listen for the strong beats. Boom, 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 3, 4, boom, boom. So for my fast forward ears who have been working on groove, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So part of what I'm trying to demonstrate is that ear training, as I've been saying, is very much about using everything that you know, everything that you have. And some of that might really be taking things off the table. So when you hear that groove and it's like there's drums and then there's this bass part that's doing this thing that's kind of like moving around a bit, you want to ask yourself, okay, well, where are the strong beats? Like where, if I simplify it, like the strong beats just being like, let's start with like the 1. And unless it's a real sort of extra syncopated kind of jazz context, there's a very good chance that like the root note is going to land on somewhere in the very beginning of the bar. The 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to land on the 1 or right near there. And that can be the thing that you limit your ears to get after. So you take the magnifying glass with your ears and you try to just hear the bass part that's happening on that strong part of the measure. Because if you get caught trying to just instantly learn like and if you say, hey, where's the tab? You've already shown your cards that if you're asking for the tab, nothing against tab in general, but in those situations, what you're basically saying is like, I don't have a clue, just tell me, paint by numbers. Show me where to put my fingers versus boom, boom. And for the person listening just at that bass part, they can be like, oh yeah, that's C, it sounds major. So it's like boom, boom. You can immediately jump into playing a part that sounds more lively because you took the core bit of information and then you went to your other bag of tricks, which might be triads, might be fills, all those kind of things. But underneath it, that critical first step is that you just listen to be like, what's happening? Okay, that sounds like a 1. Okay, that's a 5. boom, boom, boom. There's a 2. Boom, boom, boom. And it kind of makes sense once you get those buckets lined up. It's like, yeah, it's a 4-chord loop. It sort of feels symmetrical. And as always, these are not the rules for this is how good music is made or whatever. This is more the starting point where it's like when you learn that a lot of music is going to be symmetrical and it's going to follow these guidelines, then you'll be able to spot when music does something that's cool, where it breaks the rule or it borrows something, or it's a 3-bar phrase or it's a 6-bar phrase. All of those exceptions to the rules will become tasteful and you'll be able to understand them. They won't just be like advanced, calculus. They'll be like, oh yeah, like obviously people got bored of doing the same thing every time and having it be too predictable. So that's what we're doing. We're doing the sort of crawl, walk, run sequence here. Hopefully that's making some sense with this. Great. So we've pretty well mapped out this particular position. All of this leaves you with the continued homework of, and you'll love this. Da, 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 da. Like, hey, there's a lot of keys, but there's not unlimited keys. There's 12 keys, and there they all are. We just did C. And maybe what you'll start to see as we go through some of these is like, and I don't think we're by any means going to get through all of them, is that the superpower of guitar is that we can just move these shapes. That doesn't mean you can't know what the different key signatures are. Like, it's very, very helpful for you to spend time with that chart and get very well acquainted with what are the 1, 4, 5, and 6 in like all of the keys, and how many sharps or flats are in, like, you should know pretty right off the bat that G has 1 sharp, that D has 2 sharps, that in D it's D, G, and A are the 1, 4, and 5, that the relative major and minor, like these are things that are worth committing to kind of that sort of flashcard style memory, so that you can then get into the music making kind of stuff. This stuff is fun, dare I say. So what if we took away this shape? And I want to show you one more position that I think is pretty critical if you're going to have like these 2 patterns. You can decide on a nice rainy weekend to learn the other 3 or whatever, but this will get you so nicely down the road. So that pattern right there is the exact same thing, C major scale, but we've built it off of the 5th string root. And with these different positions on the guitar, you're going to have different strengths and different opportunities that come up with the shapes that you have. So with this one, I basically focus on this next because, if that last one was based around this 6-string bar chord shape, this one's based around the 5th string bar chord shape, which for a lot of us is the very next place that we go after open chords. So here's C. Let's walk our way up from here. We've got C. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. And in this one, in this particular shape, there's going to be a lot of times that we kind of reach back for something like that. So we've got C, bar chord, ba, 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 ba. There's an F, that Lean On Me riff. There's a G, that one falls right there within it. There's that A. If you picture an open A minor chord there. That's that B diminished. And then we get back up to the C. So let me try to tune up a little bit there. So let's play around a little bit in that shape and just kind of compose some melodies and connect them with some chords. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about triads right now, as far as your ability to have like the main shapes, the main string groupings for a major, for a minor? How is that going for you? Because this is where you actually start to see them in action. So if we go like a C, F, G, and then we walk up just like we did before. Now we've just got that triad right there. Okay. So let's do that again. C, got that foot thump going now. You can't see it, but the foot's thumping. C, walk up to F, and then play an F, walk up to G, walk all the way back up to the 1, C. From here we're going to continue up, 1, 2, 3, 4, walk back down to 1, walk back down to the 5, walk back down to D, boom, 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 to the F, boom, 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 okay, boom, 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 down to that G, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so the shape that I associate with this pattern is the one that looks like that. And by shape, I mean this is the other side of the coin. We've got the T shape and the L shape. And this to me looks like a T. A T right there, kind of on its side. And again, the scenario is like you're in a jam session and someone's going like, and oftentimes you're going to be able to just zero in on the bass line and be rock and roll, ready to go with the basic bar chords, okay? And that'll be your starting point. And so you will listen to that, and let's do another round of that here. I'm going to put on the pixels. So, try to stay down in this position right here, and I'm going to give you a chord progression in the key of C major. It may or may not start on the 1 chord, and you're going to have to listen to the bass line and spell it out. So here we go. One more time. Okay, so what's the main chord progression? And then for bonus points, what was the chord that I ended on there? I know I'm getting deep into the muck today. Might not be the chart-topping video of my career, but I want to teach. I want to reach out there and teach y'all. Not touch y'all. I just want to reach out and teach y'all. So what did we have there? Okay. That one threw us for a bit of a loop. Okay. So what was going on there to me was like very, yeah, okay. So we're, okay. So that one threw the team off. Okay. A lot of people jumping around on this. We got an F sharp in there. I appreciate y'all putting the guesses out there. Here's where I was playing. And look at it now on that shape right there as the dots lights up. So my impression is that what really screwed us up is that this was not starting on the 1 chord. This was starting on the 4 chord. So much of the music we love starts choruses and verses and bridges. They start on not the 1. And that's one of the very first ways to take what might sound a little bit, you know, Mary Had a Little Lambish about the boom, 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 boom. Everything sounds really nice, and it goes and it comes back home. But what if it starts a little bit away from home? What if it has this certain kind of like, we meet our hero out in the wilderness? Boom. Right? So we got to be ready to hear the bass line. Boom, 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 boom. And we got to be ready to know the difference. And this comes from practice that, oh, just because it started on F doesn't always mean that it's going to be an F major. And in fact, it can be really cool for it to be similar, but not. Meaning, the truth is, like, all of those chords I just played, they overlap. They do occur in F, but this correct key would be C major. Especially once we go boom, boom, bam, bam. Once we go to that G major, we've actually revealed that in fact we are in C, right? Most likely. So we've got a 4, 6, 1, as Ray is saying, in the key of C major. And it did that a whole bunch of times. Now, one subtle thing that I think would further trip most people up here is that if you were to write this out as a chord chart, and maybe since we got you, Ray, tell us, if you would, how would you write this out for a band in order to play it? Meaning they've got to understand exactly what the chord progression is, how long do they play each chord. I'll play it for you again. So we have this. Turning. It's fine if you see it. And I'll slowly reveal it as I walk through this. I would be counting this as 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So oftentimes a critical mistake I'll see people make is that they forget to count the last chord, especially when it happens to be the same chord that the progression started with. So they'll get to like the F and they'll think, oh, it does F, A minor, C. And then they won't clarify. And then it comes back to F, right? And then I see people get mismatched from the chord progression or the groove or the jam track all the time, is because they immediately restart thinking that they're starting over the moment that they hit that F again. So what this would actually be would be like, I don't know, this is going to show up on this diagram here, maybe up here. Yeah, there it is. So it'd be like F for 2 beats, A minor for 2 beats, C for 2 beats, and then back to the F, which seems like a obvious thing right now as we say it. But if you didn't include that clarification, a lot of people, what I'm saying is a lot of people would immediately hit that, and then they would have this crazy 1.5 measure long groove. So the way that you listen closely to something that you're learning, oh, wow, I didn't even know those characters were possible. Ray is showing us what's possible, everybody. He's got the repeat signs. He's got the 4 to the 6 and 1 to the 4. Look at that. Ray, you're hired. You're in the band. That's great. Cool beans. So what are we learning so far? We're learning how the bar chord shapes that we have that are based off of the 5th and the 6th string can give us the understanding of, most of the time, how to sound out chord progressions, right? And we would take that knowledge of those bar chords, and we would have triads that we could break out of those, so we could have these interesting guitar parts that could be higher voiced, that might sound really good with bass and drums, so that we're not always stuck down here in power chord land. We would also have the ability to match up these, like the dots in blue. Like if we sounded out the bass line and we got this, Jesse's Girl, whatever, we got the progression going, we can test out like, okay, is this going to be in C? And then you can run a bit of the scale and be like, yeah, this actually makes sense that sounds like it's wanting to go back to C, because that G major, that's the 5 chord in C. That really feels like it's spelling its way back to C. So we have more ways to use our ear training to hear the bass line, to map out the bar chords, to compare that with like the full scale and be like, well, what do I got in the key of C major? I've got the 1 chord is C, the 4 chord is F. Like, we collect this information and we can quickly test whether it matches up with our growing understanding of these kind of blocks of information, right? Let's take it to one other key and then I will set you free. But you imagine this could continue on through the many keys. And let's see if we scoot it. Let's see how far we can go. We'll move it to 1 key and then we'll go on from there. You tell me in the audience, where should I go next? And let's start with one of the more guitar friendly keys. So if it doesn't matter to me. I mean, you could say F sharp or whatever, but let's choose from like, the caged keys just to keep it on brand. And we'll just go there. I'll see if I can scoot these dots using the diagram magic. B. Ray wants to take it to B because he wants to take it to the limit. Let me see. Well, B would only be 1 fret away. So let's be actually a little more adventurous. Yeah, if we do A, the people have spoken. The people really do love A. So I'll turn that off, turn that on, and let's see if by the power of hoodoo and voodoo, you do what? Remind me of the babe. And scoot this right there. Yeah. Okay. And then let's stretch it. Whoa. Science. Okay. So now that's lined up with A. We'll just start there. Good. And we took it away. We'll turn off the blue dots there. Okay, so you guys help me fill in what are the notes, and AKA what are the notes, and then what are the corresponding chords that would go up here. How do we fill this out? Go ahead and write it into the chat if you can. Test your own knowledge. There the dots are on the fretboard. You could be playing your guitar and walking and talking through it. You might know this. You might have this memorized and be like, I know what the sharps are in A. This is not a spooky subject to me. I can just sort of lay it all out. Okay, see if you can beat me to the punch. We've got A. Talk about the alphabet. A, B. I'll just write out the letters without any sharps or flats. A, B, C, D, E. And this could be a way that you could do it because the alphabet won't steer you wrong. And in some ways, as a side note, the question that I just answered by just writing out the letters without any sharps or flats is the answer to when people ask, hey, when do you say G flat and when do you say F sharp? And the answer is that when you're in a given key, you're not going to have two of a certain letter. So I wouldn't have G sharp and A flat. I wouldn't have F sharp and G flat in this. So I wouldn't have a G and a G flat. I'm only going to have one F. Like there's only going to be one letter per each spot here. So it's A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, right? So this is what we would call a sharp key. And these are the kind of things that you can just sort of collect as you go, meaning like, oh yeah, there's certain sharp keys, certain flat keys. I remember mentioning something about that, blah, blah, blah. Great. Great, so those are our notes. Let's walk through it right here. We've got this is already stuff we've done at the very beginning of this session right here. So we've got this A, that's the one chord, right? Boom, 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 boom. Walking right up. And it should become something that you can hear in your inner ear. It's like, yeah, not a big deal. It's like, lean on me. Boom, 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 boom. Up to the D. Boom, 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 boom. The 5 chord is the E. Boom, boom. That's an F sharp right there. That's a 6. That's the relative minor. You could play that, or you could play that. You've got that A. So let's do some melodies, and I'm going to add a new twist on this since we're here. So right now, up until now, we've been playing like we've been spelling our way through the scale using the numbering, and we're landing on the root of the chord. We're saying 1, 7, 6, 5, and then we're playing a 5 chord, right? What's to stop us from walking through the scale and landing on something other than the root of a chord? And let me show you. I should have worked out a really good example here, but what if I did like, so I just played the A, that's the root of A. Bum, 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 played a D, that's the root of the D chord. Bum, 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 bum. What is that note that I just played? That's my melody. But then I played that chord. I played the third of the 5 chord there. Okay, so let me walk through that melody again. A, that's the root of the A chord, right? It's the A chord. Boom, blah, 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 boom. D, that's the root of the D chord. Now check this out. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm telling you that's the third of the G chord. There's the G chord, 1, 2, 3 of the G chord. And now I go blah, 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 blah. What note is that? And what chord is it functioning in? That note right there. Who's got that? So that's your trivia question. Boom, ba, 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 boom, to the 4, ba, 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 boom, ba, 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 boom. So, waiting on the answer there. And if you're already watching at home, hands on buzzers, you're like, ah, Jeff saying it's the third of A. So the G sharp occurred right here. That was the third of E. And again, harness the power of what all these crazy diagrams. Like, I highly recommend like printing out. There's a version of this on the website, by the way, that is reversed. It's in white. I just have it in dark mode because it drives my eyes crazy when it's all glaring white. But if you print out the white version, you can scribble on these things and, like use it, because what you'd be able to do is be like, okay, we got E, G sharp, B. Those are the notes of an E chord. So you can dig in there and be like, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's a G sharp. And you can ask yourself, where does the G sharp occur? Oh, that's the third right here. There's the 1, 2, 3. That's the third of the E chord. Draw it like that, I guess. Right? And then you start to get more tuned into like, oh, that makes sense. So suddenly the scale is walking you up to these interesting chord tones. And this will help you sound out melodies, because you don't know where you're going to start in any given song. You might start by writing a song just purely from the silence or the din of the air conditioning, and you just got to suddenly write a melody and be like, and you got to decide, what did I just write there? Should I harmonize that with a 5 chord, or should I harmonize that with a 1 chord? And maybe that's something that doesn't get taught to as many beginner and intermediate guitar players, because we feel like it might just confuse you. But you guys are ready. Let's play a little bit of this game. All this stuff is connected, by the way, I promise. So if I come up with this melody, or let's say I hear someone sing it and I'm trying to transcribe it, which means I'm just trying to figure out what the notes are. If I go, how do I decide what chord goes around that melody? And this question comes up a lot. It's like, what chords go with a melody, or vice versa? Sometimes it's like, what melody? How do I solo over a certain chord? So what we have right here is a melody that's happening within this scale. And you would be able to sound that out and be like, okay, it sounds like A major. But what chord do I play here? I've already shown you a couple options. You could do, okay, that could be the root. That's what we've been doing up until now. So if that was the root, then that note is E, then just play an E chord. So what other notes or what other chords within this key would have an E in them? Obviously, E has an E, so that one's taken care of. There's E, G sharp, and B. Okay. How about A, C sharp, and E? That's how you spell an A chord. Ding, ding, ding. So we've got, if we wanted to, we could play a 1 chord. We could play the... Who can tell me what chord in this scale would E be the 3 of? Jeff is coming in with it. Right? So this is something that you can do within the scale, is you can be like, okay, well, if the melody does this, is the melody landing on the 1, the 3, or the 5 of the chord? And you can get creative. You could this is how you could reharmonize it. So that's interesting, right? So you could, hopefully what this might set you up to do is like, as we approach the 1 hour mark here, is like you could sit with a major scale and play much more like a piano player, sounds out melodies like... And you could just purely experiment with, if you're spelling your way to a melody, ba, 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 you could say, okay, if that's the root, that would be A. Okay, ba, 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 ba. If that's the 5, oh, that would be the 4. If that's the 3, what would that be? If I played A, what is A the 3 of? I'd be like, oh, that's the relative minor. That's that F sharp minor. And suddenly you have these really interesting possibilities to compose things, to reharmonize things. It might help you, definitely will help you understand when you're trying to figure out the chords of a song. And it's like, well, boy, do I trust Ultimate Tabs and Ultimate Guitar or whatever, and Crazy Jake's chordsrus.org. Boy, they're rock solid, but I feel like they might have missed the mark with this one. It's usually because the chord was close but no cigar, where they might have a chord that works with the melody, but the right chord in the song that you like has a little something else going on. Then you borrow a chord. Choices and voices, my friends. Not too shabby. Not too bad. Nice work, gang.